Would you mind telling us a little bit about a heartbreak that you've had and how you got over it potentially?
Oh, yeah, totally. I think that for me, my biggest one was my first one. And I think that's normal for so many people.
Do you mind my asking how old you were?
We met when we were 16.
Yep, that's the sweet spot.
That's that sweet spot.
Yep.
You're just right picking for heartbreak there.
Yeah.
I was 16. Actually, crazily enough, I met her on the set of the pilot of the show Shameless that I was working on. She was related to someone in our staff, and she kind of was visiting the set. At that time, I was like this weird drama nerd kid who was like, I'd been homeschooled for the last few years. I was just really into like movies and anime and martial arts. I didn't have like a proper social life really, and did not know how to speak to a girl. And met this girl who was just like super confident and really funny.
Was she 16 too?
Yeah, we were both 16. I think she was a few months older. So, older woman.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, so we had like a lot of firsts there. Lost my virginity with her on prom night.
Oh my God. Wait, you went
just
to
going
her
full
prom?
cliche. I went to her prom, which was amazing. I had a great time. That was like such a nice thing to just be like a visitor in another school. You get like all the benefits and none of the negatives,
right.
Just like you kind of come in like a rock star, just like, yeah, we're going to play a set, we're just like here to just like have a good time.
She's like, my boyfriend's on a show.
Yeah. And then ultimately she didn't live in Los Angeles. She at the time was living on the East Coast. I went and visited her pretty regularly, every like few months. We dated for like 3 years, right? When you're like 17, 18 years old, you do not have the finances and the independence and that kind of stuff to really be able to be traveling and supporting like a long distance.
To cultivate a relationship.
Exactly. We talked so much on the phone, which was great. It was beautiful, like very traditionally teenage romantic relationship where we had blogs like Tumblrs and like WordPresses and stuff like that, where we would write short stories and poetry and that kind of stuff. And we were sharing them with each other. And it was just like lots of expressive love language, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it was very idealized because there's so much safety in that.
Yeah, especially in our world, which is the world of, financial insecurity, like zero security in general, but needing something that feels solid and stable.
Totally. And, when you're not living with a person, you get all of like that affection and communication, but then you don't have a lot of those hardships of like, yeah, but you don't put your socks away and you don't listen to me when I'm like, we have to go or we have this thing that we have to do or whatever. There's like practical reality things you don't necessarily have to deal with. And I think that we started realizing like the times that we were actually spending together, I would like come over, she would come over and just like spend like a couple weeks or something. We started going like, is this actually what we want? But because we were so young, we were so terrified. I mean, don't get me wrong. People are terrified of letting go of a relationship at any time, but especially when it's your first, you're so terrified to let go. And so we were hanging on probably way longer than what we needed to do. And I think that ultimately...
Did you make the call?
She broke up with me. And then I think I like begged my way back into a relationship at some point. But it was one of those like we're in, but we're not in really.
Yep, the half-life idea.
Yeah. I think she was physical with somebody else, which like, of course... That's the other thing that we were that 17, 18 years old age. And like, that's a time like when you need to be discovering things about yourself and what you like physically and that kind of stuff. And we were so in a drought in that department because we weren't living the same places. Like she needed to do those things. And in retrospect, that is abundantly clear. But at the time, it was like a dagger to my heart and it felt like the end of the world. So yeah, I remember she called me up and was like, I don't think we should do this. And, I've been talking to someone and blah, blah, blah. And I felt completely taken off guard by it.
Even though the seed had been planted subconsciously.
Oh, yeah, like 100%. And to a certain point, I think that I was also distancing without realizing that I was distancing and kind of doing that passive aggressive thing of like, you're searching for the end of the relationship, but also the teenage me was like, no, but this is the love of my life. So I was very taken off guard by it. And I remember walking back into the house and just like breaking down and crying and just feeling like this feeling is never going to end. And having that month or two of just like...
Did you have a song that you played ever?
Oh, yeah, I know I did. Maybe Death Cab for Cutie.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. All right.
I'll follow you into the dark, just like, which is a beautiful song, don't get me wrong, but it's so sentimental. My movies too, Blue Valentine, I watched a lot around that time.
It's like there's that human need to nurture the sorrow, to feed it for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's helpful. It's useful. Yeah. Heartbreak is useful. It's educational.
Completely.
It's a big motivation in changing things in your life and doing like all those things that you wanted to do, but you were just kind of sitting in them and not really doing it. And you tend to like get in better shape and you use it as a sounding off board for all these things. Like it can be a positive thing. You know, I actually started like dating for the first time in my life.
How was that?
It was great. It was great. You know, it was a transitional period, I would say. I was not good at it. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was interesting. I was meeting people who were so different from my first partner, and they would do things that completely surprised me. And I was like, oh, right, there's so many other options and what the dynamic of this can be. And it was great to like try on those new relationship clothes. I don't know if that's a weird way to say that, but you know, like you need to have like some dress rehearsals and you need to kind of like know what things are so you can find out your preferences and kind of recalibrate what it is that you're looking for. And I mean, thank God she broke up with me because I think teenage me would have just stayed in that for an indefinite period of time.
Trying to make a bad thing work.
Yeah, that's not great in the long run, but you know, hopefully we get better about that stuff. I think I have. I hope I have.
My 16-year-old crush, we were in a relationship for 1.5 years and I loved him as one loves as a 16, 17-year-old without much examination.
Yes.
And like he was cruel. He would make fun of people and just like that was such a turnoff.
Yeah, no, that's the worst. Finding out elitism and just dismissal. I hate dismissal too. Just when you just dismiss people, it drives me crazy.
It's a lack of imagination.
Mm-hmm.
What drew you to your current girlfriend? What qualities does she have?
I think to me, I'm really attracted to just like simple kindness, which I know is like a very obvious thing, but it's not. I really like people who are just genuine and communicative and seem to be operating from a place of like, I'm just like looking for good things for people that I care about and for myself. And like, I think that people who like really do just take care of themselves are doing a service to other people too. Like when you're proactive about like self-care and being generous to other people, like with your time, with your energy, I think that is lovely. And that I think was the initial thing that really took me off guard was she was just like so genuine. You know, I think that upon first meeting, I was kind of wondering, like, is there an ulterior motive to this? You just seem like nice, you know? But it's interesting. When I say nice, I don't mean complacent. Like, I really like people who are down to kind of communicate difference. You know, they'll call out something that they think is kind of like, that's weird. You know, again, it's not coming from a place of I'm trying to change you or something like that, but it's just coming from like, I observed this thing and I like talking about it, you know? And I think that kindness is also like communicating effectively and doing that from a place that is like generous. And I think that that's what I noticed as well. There was a really lovely dynamic upon first meeting that's continued for going on 2 years at this point.
I am really happy for you. And I love it that you sort of specified maybe the common misperception that the idea of kindness is linked to weakness, when generosity of spirit requires courage and strength and confidence. You know?
I think it's just lovely. I don't know if you've already talked about this on your podcast or in other things before, but what attracted you to your partner initially?
Thanks for asking that. Kindness, but also honesty and sincerity. He looked at me sort of steadily in the eyes when I would ask a question. He is a DP and didn't talk a ton, but I would. Partly awkwardness and partly like my own sense of bravado and quiet on a level that I hadn't had before, I think. I just appreciate him so much. And he also just like can't get enough of me either, which is kind of rad.
That's great. That's great.
It does. It feels really good. It's really nice that you asked that because actually I don't think anybody has. So thank you.
Yeah, it seems like you have a lovely relationship for the dynamic of like, because we're artists, we tend to fill a lot of space, like as performers, you know,
Yes.
it's something that like we feel uncomfortable with silences and stillness.
Totally.
We're so just searching for that approval.
I just said something really funny, honey. And like, well, where's the laughter?
Yeah.
Like, come on.